welcome. Thank you for being our guest. We're very honored to have you as our guest today. Will you tell us who you are and what you're about and how you identify, please?
I'm Lourdes Perez. I am a Puerto Rican singer, composer, songwriter. For all these years through my career, I've been openly lesbian. I identify as someone who witnesses life events, historical events, social events, and writes about, document them through poetry, music, songs. So that's some of what I do.
So I've been following your music for a long time, as you know, and you and I have known each other a long time. When we met, you were working on activism around Vieques, educating people around different kinds of social movements. I remember being drawn to your music, not just because of your amazing voice and your music, but also because of the way that you connected. Like, it was all a holistic approach as I experienced it when I first met you and your partner, Annette. And that way of moving through the world is super, important to a lot of us, as you know, but also it's hard to do. And so I want to ask you some questions today, a little bit about your journey to making those choices. Like, what compelled you to do the work that you do? How is it that you came about finding the kind of combination of moving through the world as you do, as an artist who is a witness to these important historical movements, who is somebody who shares knowledge about community struggles? Like, how did those kinds of things come about? Was there a kind of moment, aha moment, or a series of like mentors, or what were the kinds of movements that brought you to what you do?
Definitely, there's been a lot of aha moments in this career, but I think that if I'm going to just go back and root it, I think that I started to create probably a critical vision of the world around me early on in Puerto Rico. My family comes from the struggle for independence of Puerto Rico. So we always were pushed to look at things that we were not going to find in the newspapers, the real story of Puerto Rico, of colonization, of our relationship with the United States, the invasions, the oppression, the relationship with Spain. So I kind of had like that, the good fortune, I guess, of having a critical eye since early on. My father used to take me to different events, to El Grito de Lares. I grew up in that context, also surrounded by improvisational styles, improvisers, mostly men, but I always, because we were 7 women in my family, my father always took us to these places. And because we were musical, we would just be like a parranda, like you would just, So I think I was given mixed messages that were good, meaning just try to understand things, express yourself, sing, do things that usually are not things women do. And I think that I kind of said, okay, I think I like this about being a woman. I don't think I like this other thing. And so kind of like just started to kind of form that. Right now, I've been singing for like almost 30 years. I started when I was around 30 and I'm 60. So in between that, we met during those struggles. I think that the struggle for Puerto Rican independence has always been something that I cherish and that I work towards, no matter where I have found myself in the world. And therefore, the struggles of other people, like those struggles in Puerto Rico, be in Palestine or whatever I may find myself, Chiapas, Mexico, those struggles are also my common struggles, because I feel like as an artist, and this is where it all comes together, I consider myself an internationalist, not just politically, but artistically. And that's why I love collaborations with other artists. I love meeting other artists, that kind of thing. In terms of like how it started, we were talking about this because it's actually really funny. The first time, it's funny now, but the first time that we decided to make a cassette, okay? So many of you in your classes probably haven't encountered a cassette player, but hey, cassette player. It was in 1992. I went to the doctor and they thought I had thyroid cancer. I didn't have it, so that's good. But what they told me was that they needed to operate, and so that my vocal cords could be damaged. They couldn't guarantee that that wasn't going to happen. So, and then, and I said, well, we have to record something because you can't, So that's when the first cassette was recorded. And that's how it kind of started in terms of to take shape.
So there was a sense of urgency. Do you have a favorite song from there that you recorded?
The song Compañeras, which is the first song I wrote, was in that cassette. And I think there were other songs by other authors. Corazón y Mujer, it was a lesbian story of hidden love of two women. So I used to sing songs that were not written by me. And then once I started to write, I decided to, rarely I do somebody else's song.
So, and you still have the cassette? Has that been digitized?
I think we are going to do that now in these times. I have 2 copies of that.
Sure. What's your latest project?
Well, we have a few projects. The latest one, the one that is happening April 17th, is a collaborative project with Dr. Norma Cantu and Liliana Wilson, the Chilean painter, is with Boston Community College and Carnegie Hall together. They have a program, and they have paired poets, musicians, and visual artists. And so each one of us have like a 15-minute slots that we are collaborating. It's actually a very exciting project because it just explores other ways, and I can't wait to see what other artists are doing. But that's one of the things we're doing. We have created a podcast called Radio Vox Femme, where we are identifying a woman, singer, composer from every country and occupied territory on earth. So we have a lot of work to do, but some beautiful relationships have come out of that. Then we expanded Vox Femme to Vox Femme Chican India. We added a Global Health Minute with Dr. Annette D'Armata. And so we are exponentially growing. And that came out of the necessity of having women's voices represented in music and medicine and art. And so that we can say the things that we want to say with our own voice. A lot of the music that has been written by men. Even when women perform them, they're performing men's music and men's arrangements. So we want to kind of break with that and see how would it sound if we were to have a say on how the aesthetics and all of that of music of women. One of the things that we want to do is like unearthing the female voice.
Are you thinking about occupied territories in the sense of like territories like in a national sense, colonization? Or are you also thinking about like prisons, detention centers, and the kinds of forms of occupation those can take?
I think all of it. I think that's the point, is that even when we think about the United States, there the indigenous communities within the United States, the Chicano. So we are just expanding that and just basically from Vox Femme, then it expanded to Vox Femme Italy. And so basically what we are doing is if somebody finds in their country or their place that they want to do something to incorporate their work into Vox Femme, then they will do it. It's kind of like a little anarchy and a little freedom. It's like, go do it. And
yeah, so it reminds me of like old like ham radio activists, kind of like finding their outlet, right? And like recording and then finding whoever it was would put them on the air.
Yeah. It's just a way to like have a different vision survive. There's a lot of noise and a lot of ways in which we are not listening. And I think that we can design different ways of entering into the consciousness of people by doing things that are different, that may not be as popular. Hello, here I come again doing something that is not very popular. But I think that those these kinds of ways of being in the world have they're like an extract. They're like a powerful potion that has a a way that survives through the years. And I think that that's also how art and activism are connected, because there is a need to survive. I mean, the act of survival is a revolutionary act, especially when it comes to people of color, queer peoples. Surviving is a big part of the struggle. And I think that the fact that we as independent artists are able to survive is a big deal. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna lie to you. This has been very difficult. And I think that technology has helped, and we need to continue to use technology to expand our ways and to grow and to develop. But there's another part of this, is that there's legacy that happened before technology. And so we have to make sure that we also understand and learn from those whose legacies came before the computer age, the dinosaurs, that used to roam the earth. So we're still here.
But also the telling of the stories of our survival, right? Which is part of what your art does, right? Not just the like the act of surviving. I hear you, and I really appreciate your speaking to this particular pandemic moment. Things were already hard, right? As an independent artist, you're already up against a lot. As one who speaks to the kinds of things that you speak to and about, right, in the communities that you move through, those are even more challenging, right, in terms of survival and finding the spaces, resources to support your art and those movements as well, right? But then on top of that, you've got this pandemic, pressing down on our communities, right? Pressing down on people's abilities to survive,
Yes.
including yours, right? And then the survival is all part of the survival. The kind of important rituals and contributions artistically of survival are the telling of the stories, right? Getting those voices out there through Vox Fem, through your art, through your recordings, right? Through the conversations and connections.
I think that one of the things that's happened during this pandemic with artists is that we have been checking on each other, because the necessity to survive is really high. I think that people are used to see the end product of an artistic expression. Okay, like, oh, that's a beautiful song, that is an amazing painting, that's a beautiful poem. But how does that artist is kept alive and supported? It's a big question, and it's a question that's still unanswered. And I think that some artists have fallen through the cracks during the pandemic, and some artists have died because they had to continue working, gigging, singing, doing what they did, exposing themselves before, there was a vaccine, and, there's promise, etc. But I think that those are very tangible day-to-day activities that artists are engaged on. Like, if you want to know what artists are doing, okay, we're trying to create, we're trying to sing, we're trying to produce, and we are also checking on other artists. Are you okay? Do you have what you need? Do you need this? Do you have that? Likewise, the artists are going, are you okay? Do you need something? And those are the things that are just basic, that are the things that make the work happen.
You were saying we earlier. Given that you are such a team, such an amazing team, and you do have a contributor, if you all didn't mind, to have a couple of minutes of the tag team on here together. Annette, will you introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what you're about, what you do?
I'm Annette D'Armata. I'm Dr. Annette D'Armata, and I'm also Lourdes Perez's partner. Very much and very comfortable with being a backstage worker. There's a lot of talk about frontline workers, and we need frontline workers, especially right now. But also, just as you say, there are a lot of backstage, backline workers, and that includes like a lot of essential workers, a lot of people out there right now. Not necessarily talking about me in that case, but I just just feel like right now it's important to say that. A lot of invisible work being done to keep everybody alive. It's one of the things Lourdes was talking about, artists kind of helping each other. We co-founded Vox Femme. We've been together, if she's been singing almost 30 years. It would be 29 years because we've been together 30 years in May.
In terms of Vox Femme, like how did that come about? And then tell me about the branching out and the parts that you're doing.
So Lourdes has produced 14 records. 2 of them are books and CDs. And those last 2 were oral history books. One was oral histories drawn from her mother, and then she turned them into songs. And she won't say this, and women don't say these things, but it's a genre that really doesn't exist. It's created. It's something, and you know that when you go to look for the category things belong in and it doesn't exist. There are audiobooks. Of course, there are songs that are drawn from stories all the time, but there isn't that, going in as an oral historian, taking the stories and then literally turning each one into a song, producing it, recording it with musicians that are appropriate to that, and then producing a book and a CD that is side by side. So she did that twice. The second one was the Homenaje al West Side de San Antonio. Both of them were based in kind of the 20s, 30s, 40s. And we felt like every one of those productions really represent like an epocha, of life. And we really felt like we needed to go back to sort of go back to those international connections and women's voices and queer voices. We felt like that was just, through life, we've had to kind of balance things as you're in something for a couple of years, and then you're like, okay, we have to rebalance this and spend this time. So one night we were just talking and we said, what is it that gives us like this incredible joy? What's missing? And we said, we haven't in a few years now been able to form those connections like we always have, and let's do it. And this time let's do what we always have done, but let's formalize.
Just kind of give people the holistic picture here, to talk a little bit about your journey into medicine and healing and what that has meant in terms of your work. It seems like it connects to the way that you all move as a power duo through the world.
Well, it relates to Lourdes' health history. And there was a time after, many years of, as she said, this work is difficult, but there's also, individual health histories and people's lives. And at some point, Lourdes became very, very ill, like very ill, non-functional. That was in the late 1990s, early 2000. And we had to keep working. There was no other way. We were full-time in the music compositions. I started researching as much as I could to try to figure out what was wrong. Spent many untold times doing that. And eventually it took a couple of years, but we finally worked out getting her on a road to being better. And that was very frightening. And many people out there with, very frightening illness, very scary, chronic, debilitating mental and emotional and physical symptoms have been through that. And so I think sometimes it's important to talk about it. When we first met, I was studying pre-med, and then I was younger, and she one day it was after Mercedes Sosa came to Austin the first time, and it was a concert, and she told me, she goes, I want to sing. I feel like I want to sing. And I said, okay, well, if you do, you're not going to do it half-ass. Okay, we're not going to do anything half-ass. You're going to quit your job. And I'm 24 years old. She's 30, I'm 24. Quit your job, and we're going to figure out how to do this, and we're going to do it full blast, and we'll do it for 3 years. That was the commitment, 3 years. Mm-hmm. And then we'll reassess. And 3 years turned into now. It turned into 30. And in that period where she was very, very sick, and after that, we had a conversation about rebalancing life. I supported her. I was very backstage. And part of rebalancing life was also, how could she support me? And also all the work I had done for a couple of years brought me back to wanting to study medicine. So at 38, that's what I ended up doing. And
I graduated with honors. Okay.
Dr. Armata, what are some of the other projects you all have worked on? Did you work together on Homenaje al West Side? Or
yes.
You probably have worked together in all of them, right? But the ones that you felt like this is what we're working.
Yeah, we work together. We have actually we have through the years we have developed a way of working together, from conceptualizing to arrangements to what musician may sound good here, and so there's ways in which I go away and do things, and then we come back and get together and bounce them back and just figure it out. So this project, Homenaje West Side of San Antonio, we took the stories of a group of elders, the Corazones de Esperanza, that went and met at the Esperanza Center. And Esperanza, because we did Dulce Vigilante, and actually we're able to finish the project through a grant from NALAC as well. So we worked with Esperanza as well in that project. And then they saw the product and said, would you do the same with this group of elders in San Antonio? It was a challenge, and it was also a very beautiful process, because growing up, I think with my parents and that generation, we have a lot of common music that went through Puerto Rico and Mexico and Latin America, for that matter. So a lot of the things that they talked about and the memories they had, I remember them because I learned the same songs growing up. So it was very interesting to kind of to confirm one more time the deep connection that Mexico and Puerto Rico have. And so in so many veins, but the musical vein is a very strong one. So that gave us like an ability to start hearing the sounds of the stories. And so it also talks about the history of displacement of the west side of San Antonio, the corporation, the developments, the people being moved and thrown out of places, the impact that had on their lives, the lives lost in families. So it was very deep and very, very emotional at the same time. So this group of elders gave us each a story, many stories, but just from there, I turned those into songs. We asked them in the interviews their favorite songs and sounds, so that the story, the music that I'm going to write is relevant to their story, but it also gives them back that sound. We did from danzas, danzones, boleros, tangos, trio songs, and we involved over 22 musicians, most of them from the west side of San Antonio. As you know, there's a rich history of music in the west side. So we were honored to have people like Tishi Hinojosa, like Flaco and Santiago Jimenez, Eva Ibarra, the Tesoros of San Antonio, so many musicians that collaborated that never had been in a CD together. So I think it was a beautiful journey.
It's a treasure.
Sure. It is a treasure because the west side of San Antonio is a treasure. To be able to focus the work on that was very rewarding for us, and I think it just deepened the connections in a way.
That's great. That's beautiful. And bringing folks together too, to like their voices together, imagining them all in the same kind of place, like space that you made, right? You were saying like never having been on an album together, right? But like what a powerhouse of stories and people, and then what a gift too to be able to turn people's stories into song and incorporate the love of the different kinds of music that they are familiar with too, and give that back to just it's an amazing experience, that collection. But the process sounds intense and amazing.
It was very intense. Like we thought, oh, we're gonna do 2 interviews a day, whatever. And I said, Annette, I know we just need to do 1 interview a day because I know what's gonna happen, right? So remember, we were like, we were planning like, oh no, the first time we went to an interview, that afternoon I was rendered like, olvídate, right? Because the stories had to go through your body. They have to go through your body. And that's the beauty and the pain of creating. It's like you really have to honor what you're given. And so if it just knocks you out a little bit and you have to rest and come back to it, then you do it. And I think that we did that. And I think the greatest gift for me there was to be entrusted with the stories, that these elders from here will entrust us that are not originally from here to do that work. And then to the research that we had to do, and I had to do a lot of research and musical research to honor the styles. It's not folkloric music from Mexico. I'm not a folklorist, but I had to study the styles so that I can impart some of those and honor it, that do an homenaje like it should be. So it was really nice. I really liked it.
I think somebody asked this question, because they think of Lourdes as being, political, very, social justice oriented. The way that the elders, and your mother as well, right? Even though they were founders of the Independence Party, when they tell the stories, they tell the stories in a way that is very, it may not sound militant to us, another generation, or to us. It sounds like they use humor. They used humor to survive.
Yes.
There was so much tragedy that they focused on the good. One of them, Salimos Ganando, was a song about winning dance contests, and that was the couple that had the most tragic story. But it's like, but she extracted that from their story because that was their attitude. And someone said, but almost like it was too positive. It's like, but the thing is I guess there's different types of writing, and if she's writing her own thing, she can be as tragic, and we know she can be as tragic
as I can.
She can be the most tragic possible. But when you're taking an oral history, you have to honor the way that person is saying it, and not interject or impose, I guess, your own agenda. And so that's the other thing that was, interesting about that, both of those projects.
And the thing about it is that for them, the theme that kept coming up, it's like every time somebody will tell me a horrible story, they will say, well, we're still here. We're still here. And you have to honor that. You have to find a way to honor that they survived. And I think that was the part that they appreciated. Like one of the songs had was the dance contest had chotis, redoba, polka, it had swing. So you had to in that song in particular, because it was a dance contest, I had to incorporate all these sounds. And these are sounds I didn't grow up with swing. I didn't grow up with swing. So I'm like, okay, how do you write? How do you figure out this swing? But anyway, I think also with following what Annette is saying, that people don't think it's radical. To me, when I did the project Dulce Vigilante of the stories from my mother, I have this song. It's called Maestra del Campo, and it's just the walk my mother took to go teach in the rural area. When you get up at 5 a.m, when people say I walked and I crossed 2 rivers and la la la, and we're like, yeah, whatever. Yes, that's true. Some people did. Okay. Get up at 6 a.m, stop somewhere for breakfast, get to the school, pick up the children on the way. The children, all of yours, you have to pick them up as you go to teach them.
Like a human bus?
Yes, yes. Yeah. And then to teach them in a classroom that only had a zinc cover, a roof, and al aire libre.
No walls.
No walls. Hardly any pencils, like when my mother used to tell me that she said, a pencil like this, that you guys have all these pencils, mine used to go all the way like here, because there was no money to buy anything. I think one of the things the artists do that I really appreciate about my craft is that you have to be very observant, and not as a aloof observant. You have to observe so that you can enter. And I think once you enter, then you can have a real experience of what that person is talking about. You have to take the risk, the emotional risk, to enter somebody else's reality so that you can go in and with care and grace extract something and then honor that and give it to the world the best way you can. We've taught residencies to students and young writers. To me, that's the essence of what I want you to take from me as an artist, is that you must feel something, to write something. Don't just write because it came up in your head. Write because you have entered an emotional state that will allow you to create something new. And then if you do that, that writer's block thing will not visit upon you because you have to go in there. The thing is not going to come to you. And I think that that's, for any student that is thinking and wants to write, I think you have to feel.
Yes, so true, so true. And I'm glad you went there, because one of the things I wanted to ask you about was I'm really excited about your is it lyrics that you're turning into a poetry book, right? I've always experienced the songs that you write. I love your voice and your music. I've been a fan for a very long time, and I feel like I get pushed through into an emotional state when I experience your music, especially in recording, but also live. But I also experience your writing as poetry, and I experience you as a poet, and so I'm glad to hear that you're going to have a poetry book. But will you talk a little bit about how that came about?
Well, that was like 2017. I lost track of time because of pandemic. I don't know who I am. But anyway, no.
It could be 3 months, 3
it
years.
Was 3 years. When was that? That was last month. No, that was 2 months ago, 3 months. But anyway, in 2017, Annette came up with this great idea. She goes, I think it'd be great if you can write a poem every day for 365 days. I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds like a great idea. I'm going to write a poem every day. She goes, yeah, you're going to write a poem every day. I'm like,
well, and also use it as an opportunity to pull up. She has a lot of songs, poems already written that were not, unpublished and or untranslated. And so I thought, we were so kind of despondent at the end of 2016. And I thought, what is the best response? And we've been wanting to work on, you just keep doing things. And sometimes the archives, especially for artists before the computer age, right? A lot of non-digitized stuff is just lost in a vortex. And I said, you know what, instead of, getting inundated with news and things that we try, to not let kill us, let's have a response, the best creative response. And that would be for you to write a poem every day.
Son, I have that great idea for you.
Before midnight. It has to go up before midnight. And I have to translate it. And so we did that without fail. We did it every single day before midnight in 2017.
Yes.
So
yes,
that's there.
That's there. So that will be published. And yes. I think that was a year of the Maria, the storm that hit Puerto Rico.
Yes.
That was that year after that Maria storm.
About pandemic. Let's talk about the pandemic. I kind of, in some ways, I'm like, oh my gosh, let's not talk about the pandemic, but we have to. It's real, right? What are the kinds of things that you're doing? So making art, I like what you said, and that you're just like, let's have a response, right? she gave you homework, Lourdes, right? To write the poems.
My God. Sometimes
here's what you're going to do.
This is what you're going to do.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it.
I'm like, sometimes it'll be like 11:30 and she's like, do you have a poem for me? I'm like, I don't have a poem. I do not have a poem. And then that year of those poems, that's when the Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico. And so we didn't know about our family there for at least, I think I lost track of time, but it could have been 2 weeks. I don't know.
2 or more for some of the family members.
Some of them I heard from, and then they couldn't get to see if the other ones were okay because everything was down. And so I was just a nervous wreck, completely. We were just like this. And so that was really, really hard. Wow. So many things have happened. But
we started Hormigas Boricuas.
We started a group called Hormigas Boricuas, the Boricua aunts. And we would just gather filtros and food and sending packages as much as we could because you couldn't drink the water or do anything like that. So a lot of people helped on those for that. Sent some digital, ¿cómo se llaman estos?
Satellite texters,
because people didn't have telephones. So we did a lot of stuff to kind of help as we could.
Not me, I mean a lot of people helped. Yeah.
We just were the hormigas gathering stuff, and a lot of people helped. So that was good. That happened in the poetry book. So that I think that day is empty. There's a blank page. I didn't write anything.
That was the poem, actually.
There was a blank. Mm-hmm. There's 2 collaborations that I'm going to be working on. One is with this amazing Gabonese singer called Annie Flore Batelili, and we are going to do a song together. And that I'm looking forward to that. That's very exciting. We're out of this Box Femme festival that we put together, and Annette made contact with her. So we're very, very excited about that.
Through Google Translate.
Annette sent her a French Google translated message, and she answered. I said, well, you told her something she understood.
And it said what you meant. Like, you're writing a cookbook together now, but it'll work.
I was just happy that I didn't insult her, Right,
exactly. You never know with Google Translate. And then the other day I received this message from this Irish singer, Susan McCann. I think, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing her, McCann. And we're going to write a song together about Ireland and Puerto Rico, the 2 islands. And so I'm very excited. She knows a lot about history of Puerto Rico, and we're going to work together. It's going to be in Gaelic and Spanish, and the other song is going to be in French, Punu, and Spanish. So those collaborations are going to be happening. Yeah, and the thing is, we have been very busy during this pandemic. I don't know about people saying they're bored, because we just keep working. I mean, just have to just continue. So
I have so many questions. I feel like I could talk to y'all for hours. Obviously, one of the things I want to ask is Mercedes Sosa influence on you, working with her? Anything you want to say around that?
Growing up, as my sisters went to the university, we started to learn and hear more music from Latin America, the social movements that were taking place there. One of the people that we learned about was Mercedes Sosa and the music of Violeta Parra, just beautiful music and her voice. So when I was very young, I went to see her in a stadium concert. I couldn't hear much because it was kind of big. And then in 1995, I was asked, once we moved here, I was asked to open for her at the Bass Concert Hall in Austin. And that was 3 years after I had gone to see her in concert in 92, when I told you that I needed to sing. We were in the back seat, like we could touch the wall of the back seat that time in 1992, and in 1995 they asked me to open for her. So that was it was a great honor. And I wrote a homenaje to her that night. After the homenaje, before she went on stage, she asked her friend Elena to bring me to her to meet me. And I was like, so I was like, oh my God, she's a beautiful, very sweet, and just incredible person. After that, she invited me to sing at Boston Symphony Hall in Boston in that same year. And then in 2000 and 2002, she came to sing at the One World Theater, and I sang their duets with her. That was a very incredible moment.
And if anyone recorded that in the universe, please
come
forward.
We don't have a recording of that.
Really? Oh, I was there for that, and I used to record a lot of things, but I didn't. It was a concert, right? Oh.
That was a beautiful encounter, and interesting, because before she came, Annette said to me, if you want to, just talk to her, and just like, and so we talked, and it was like so beautiful, and just somebody that had accomplished so much in her life and had gone through so much in her own political, personal life. So generous. She gave so much. And even like after when she was at the airport, that we said goodbye, and at the airport, she kind of gave me like a singing lesson at the airport. It was amazing. So she just had recorded Misa Criolla, and she told me, you know, I had to go and get a voice coach for this record because it's you know, she says it's more classical. So,
but she also told you that as you get older, she was saying those of us who didn't train, she said, as you get older, you're going to have to do these exercises because you're going to want to preserve your voice into your 60s and 70s.
She said, look, she goes, mira, she goes, put your hand over here. So she goes, she said, listen, and then she sang a piece of the, you know, the song, Señor, ten piedad de nosotros.
Like the earth opened up in the airport.
And I'm like, I have my hand on her chest, and she's like, Señor, ten piedad de nosotros, right? And I'm like, oh my God. And then she goes, just now put your hand over here on my stomach. And then she sang the other part, Señor, ten piedad de nosotros. So she goes, see, that low note comes from over here. And then the other one, you have to go get it over here. And so she was just doing a voice lesson for me before she left. I was like, oh my God.
When she asked her to come to Boston that time, you know, like right after the opening, we were so poor. I mean, we were like, we just put everything together to even like be there. And so she's like, this concert is the following week. And it didn't occur to, she's like a grandmother that gives you like, you know, $5 for your antibiotics, you know. She didn't occur to her like how we were going to get there. We just like, we got to get there. And it was really adorable because we didn't tell anybody before social media or telling everybody everything. Somehow it got to people. And I remember Maria Limon showed up the next day with a check and she just quietly handed it. It's like they knew we needed to get there. And they knew we weren't going to be able to unless we started walking. And that's how people helped each other quietly and still do. And we got there. Fast forward years later, 2002, they sing together and everything. And she asked Elena, our mutual friend, quietly, like one day in the dressing room, she goes, how? She goes, I think she started to realize, so how did they get there? In 95, how did they get there? Did you help them? And Elena's like, you know, people helped or whatever. So you suddenly realize or whatever. Okay, so now at the airport, the singing lesson or whatever, she tells us to go get her some water. She shoos us away. We leave. We come back. And then when she's walking away on the tarmac, she's leaving, you know, Elena says, okay, and she gives us this bundle of cash. It was $400 in a rolled up bundle, hot, like, you know, for your grandmother's hand. And she said she made me swear that I would wait till she was gone to hand it to you. And that was for whatever, like she said, she knows that, you know, it's not for the past, but for your records or you know, for making records or whatever.
Whatever, yeah.
We've never told that story publicly, ever.
What heart.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. That's a super sweet story. Yeah. And it just, you know, speaks to you all and to her, but also like, that's how I experience you all and the way of moving through the world, that kind of making art and making community together and paying it forward, literally. That's super sweet. Wow. What an amazing opportunity. I was there at One World and that was a night to remember. That was just amazing concert. I can't even imagine what it was like to be, you know, up on stage with her, but it was an amazing experience. And I remember that night lingered and a lot of us stayed and danced after and like nobody wanted to leave. One of my favorite things, in addition to listening to your music, is hearing you talk about and when you explain a song to the audience and you translate, but also tell the story. I enjoy those experiences. And so I was wondering, since you're not going to sing live for us, if you might tell us what you plan to share.
We're going to do Venía Sola. It's a new song and it is based on the imagery from one of Liliana Wilson's paintings of a woman on a little boat playing the cello. And you can see the water and she's playing the cello. So the words are, she came along on a little boat and a flag was dancing in the wind and directing an orchestra of water she was playing her cello. A wise owl had stepped atop the little boat, and looking far, far away, he sang to the seas under the moon this omen, this auguración. The auguración is a circle, a sphere, roundness, a continuity, a return to the beginning. Welcome us, because maybe next time you might be the defenseless one. And a circle, a sphere, redondez, continuity, return to the beginning. Welcome me, because next time you may be the defenseless one. And then at the end is she coming alone in a boat and with the flag, and directing the orchestra of water. She was playing her cello, and that's Venia Sola.
Thank you so much, and thank you both for taking the time to be with us today and to tell us your stories and about your experiences and your collaborations over the years. And both of you just amazing gifts to the world, and have so many gifts to keep giving. And I'm honored to be talking with you today, and to be able to experience the gifts that you all share. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And it means a lot. It means a lot that you have invited us. And it means a lot because we grew up together. And in the era that we share and we met through our lives, and we
as baby queers.
We were baby queers, and we grew up, and we had to find our way, and we kind of went back and we shaped ourselves, and went and studied, and you're beautiful, incredible, like just amazing development, and all the things that you're doing now that are contributing to generations of young people, opening pathways. So it's good to have that history together with you, and I really appreciate you, and I'm sure your students and the people that you come in contact with also are getting a great deal of just the amazing person that you are. So I really appreciate you having us here. We're not, doesn't feel that lonely.
And this tangible support for artists. Thank you.
The tangible support for artists.